Hello, hello. Many of you know me, and for many of you, this isn't the first time I'm interrupting one of your private conversations. I'm Yago. I've been active and building in the Bitcoin space for 15 years now. And it's as blinding and as experience as these lights are. Today, I think I'm going to say some things that for you are going to make you very angry. I hope that's the case, despite the fact that Bitcoin has been very good to me. Bitcoin's been very good to us. And I've tried to be good for Bitcoin. But over the last few years, I've been growing increasingly frustrated. We promised ourselves certain things in the early days of Bitcoin. We promised ourselves that we would have a high degree of decentralization, that we were going to get rid of intermediaries. And I've been growing increasingly frustrated that we don't have these things. We don't have the ability to transact with Bitcoin without intermediaries. I still can't borrow or trade or lend without going through some counterparty or whoever the next FTX is. I also want to be able to have private transactions, natively private transactions on Bitcoin, because I've been paying attention to what's going on out there. And I want to see truly decentralized stablecoins. Stablecoins are the second biggest use case we have in this space. They're controlled by two companies, completely centralized, and instead of being backed by BTC, the reserve asset of the world, they're backed by USD. But perhaps more than anything, what I want is I want to have that sense of adventure and courage and innovation that we used to have in Bitcoin. Everything was happening in Bitcoin. It was the cutting edge, whether it was proof of stake or layer 2 systems or ordinals and NFTs. Everything was originally invented in Bitcoin, and today people are calling it boomer coin. And I'll tell you what I don't want. What I don't want is for builders to have to ask permission in order to innovate on Bitcoin. I don't want for us to have a BIP for the community to approve in order for us to make changes. I don't want for us to have a soft fork every time we want to introduce a feature, which leads to contentious changes to consensus and robs Bitcoin of the one thing that has truly set it apart from all of the copy coins that have come since, saying that they can do what Bitcoin can't. What has kept for the last 15 or 16 years Bitcoin the boss of all chains is the fact that it is the only chain that is unchanging, eternal. Bitcoin is the only permaware, and we can't give that up. So what I'm saying to you basically is I want to have the ability to eat my cake and keep it too. And I think, I want to be able to make changes and add features and innovation to Bitcoin, but I don't want it to change. Now, this wouldn't be a Bitcoin conference if we weren't all just a little bit greedy. We all want more. And I'm here to tell you that we can have it. Yesterday, Bitcoin changed in a very significant way. Every time you come to one of these conferences, there's people getting up on stage and telling you all of the wonderful things that they're going to do. They're going to bring the next billion people to Bitcoin. They're going to introduce innovation. They're going to decentralize this and that. There's a huge amount of noise in this space. But I'm here on stage sort of trying to provide signal, and the way to do that, in my mind, is not to talk about things that could be. It's to talk about things that have already happened. And yesterday, something that a lot of people are already talking about, and I think all of us should be paying attention to, happened. In block 853.626, for the first time ever, Bitcoin underwent a permissionless upgrade. The first time that it was possible not just possible, but this actually happened. That features, new features and functionality were added to Bitcoin without a BIP, without a soft fork, without any changes to consensus code. And not only that, the change that occurred in block 626 opens the door to many more permissionless upgrades to Bitcoin. We've opened the door to innovation in Bitcoin. For many years, throughout all of Bitcoin's history, people have been talking about the fact that if we could get zero-knowledge proofs into Bitcoin, right? Satoshi Nakamoto, Greg Maxwell, Eli Ben Sasson, Vitalik Buterin, Robin Linus have all spoken about the potential power of ZK proofs on Bitcoin. Because what if we had ZK proofs, not just in theory, but in reality, we would be able to wrap inside of a Bitcoin transaction unlimited power, complexity, and functionality. Well, yesterday in block A53626, that theory became reality. Thank you, sir. I think you are ahead of the curve here. We should all be clapping. So maybe it would be helpful if I showed you something. If we could go on to the next slide. All right, what you see here, we've built a new kind of block explorer for Bitcoin. It's a block explorer for ZK proofs in the Bitcoin ecosystem. And where is the, there we are. So on those screens over there, on that screen over there, what you can see is the block explorer, and you can also see a verification flow. Those are transactions that occurred and have already been confirmed by the Bitcoin miners in Bitcoin as of yesterday. The first one, the one that says step 0 PAT, that is a very interesting transaction. That is a transaction that created a simple UTXO, perfectly vanilla UTXO, from the perspective of the Bitcoin consensus system. But inside that UTXO, there's BTC and an ordinal. And also inside of that UTXO is a fully functioning smart contract. Now that UTXO is special in other ways as well. That UTXO has no owner. It's not a multisig. It's a UTXO that is controlled by the smart contract. And that smart contract is doing something that we've been talking about for well over a year in Bitcoin circles. For over a year, we've been talking about what it would bring to Bitcoin if we could have covenants, if we could have conditional transactions. The smart contract in that UTXO emulates a conditional payment, emulates covenants. And so the transaction flow that you're seeing here, all of these transactions are transactions that verify a zero-knowledge proof, a proof proving that something outside of the Bitcoin chain happened, which triggers the condition that allows for those assets to be transferred. And the very last transaction that confirmed, the one that's registered as final, that was the final verification of the first ZK proof on Bitcoin. And what it did is it triggered the smart contract that controlled the UTXO to transfer the ordinal and the BTC to a new address, to someone else. So the first conditional covenant-like transaction, the first ZK transaction, and the ordinal that was transferred as well was also a special ordinal with powers that we've never seen before. And that we will, I won't be able to get into detail on that, but on Saturday we'll be giving another tech talk on the open source stage. You're welcome to come. But what this single UTXO provided is not just proof of concept, but an actual use case where we've now demonstrated that within a single Bitcoin transaction, we can pack unlimited degrees of scalability, of functionality, of power.
Sure.
Inside every single Bitcoin transaction now, we can place an entire world in a grain of sand, an eternity in a single block. So
So it's okay.
I'm here speaking as part of a project that has accomplished this. And our project, BitcoinOS, we call ourselves BitcoinOS because that has been our goal, to allow us to achieve the things that we want to achieve in terms of innovation on Bitcoin, and to allow us to build an entire decentralized digital world on Bitcoin. To allow us to do it with the technology that we know is reliable, because right now on screen you can see that there is a video that isn't loading.
Well,
That's what happens when you try to use technology that changes all the time. When you use Microsoft or Ethereum, we want to use permaware and build the world on permaware. So I'm going to suggest you switch over to the next slide, because what we're doing with BitcoinOS, we've brought ZK proofs to Bitcoin, and over the next few months, we're going to utilize this first step to start bringing the first true rollups to Bitcoin. We ourselves are not building a rollup, but today there are more than 50 projects that are seeking to build rollups on Bitcoin, and they can use BitcoinOS to do that. As of yesterday, when we announced what had happened in block 853626, something that we weren't expecting happened. A whole bunch of Ethereum rollups reached out to us to ask whether or not this technology could allow them to transfer, to effectively migrate their rollups from Ethereum to Bitcoin. And I think that's happening. That happened much faster than we were expecting. So with BitcoinOS, our goal is to make real the hype that we've been selling to ourselves, all of us here in this room, that we would be able to bring innovation back to Bitcoin, that we would be able to do on Bitcoin anything useful or worthwhile that they're building in other parts of crypto, that we would be able to bring the rest of the crypto world with all of its users and mindshare and liquidity and transactions and DeFi back to the boss of all chains, back to Bitcoin, and most importantly, that for real this time, we would get hyper-Bitcoinization. We would build the tools that would allow for scale, for low-cost, high-frequency transactions so that 1 billion people can use Bitcoin. The technology is not just here. It's already being implemented. Yesterday, Bitcoin was Boomer Coin. Today, it is a chain where we can literally pack into a UTXO any functionality that we want. Yesterday, Bitcoin required someone's permission in order to be upgraded. Today, any developer can build on Bitcoin and introduce any functionality that they want. Yesterday, scaling Bitcoin was impossible or was only going to be done with Lightning Network, and we see how well that's worked. Today, any scaling technology can be applied to Bitcoin. I don't think it's hyperbole to say that we're in a new era. As of block 853626, Bitcoin has more powers and more avenue to innovation than it's ever had before. And I'm very excited to be telling you about it, because in this room right now are some of the most influential people, the most active builders in the Bitcoin space. So on screen, you can see a QR code. And I encourage anyone who's interested in finding out more about this, tracking this, and taking the next steps, not just the first step, but the next steps with us, to start building everything that we've always imagined we would on Bitcoin. We've created the builders group for you. Join us there, because this is something for all of us. For over a year now, we've been hyping ourselves up. For over a year, we've been talking about the fact that Bitcoin is entering into a renaissance. So I'm going to finish off by saying, fuck the renaissance. This is an industrial revolution. Let's build!